I'm very glad to have on this panel also Benjamin Peri, the co-founder of Pyxo, your startup that offers reused packaging for restaurants, and we'll talk about it, of course, later. Stéphanie Zolesio, you're president of Casino Immobilier and FinTech, and Frédéric Montagnon, you're the founder and chairman of Arianee, NFT platform for brands.
Does it work? Yeah.
So, environment and Web3 are often opposed, as you know. We hear a lot of that crypto, especially Bitcoin, is really bad for environment. So we're gonna try to go beyond those cliché and give examples.
Again.
And you can defend yourself later, Frédéric. And so I'm gonna start with you, Benjamin, because we're all wondering what you're doing here, and what's the the link with Web3. So can you tell us more about it?
Yes, sure. So yes, I'm not a Web3 company actually. We are a company that is trying to get rid of single-use packaging to replace it by reusable containers. We've been working with McDonald's, for instance. You might know about the reusable containers at McDonald's. And actually we are here because reuse is actually a very complex thing to implement. It's highly complex, and what we do today as Pyxo is we do a part of this whole chain of reuse. We manage a pool of reusable containers that are actually connected. Every single container has a unique ID held by a QR code or RFID tag. At McDonald's, this RFID tag, you can see them at the bottom of your cup, for instance. And we make sure that we gather data from these containers all around the supply chain, so that when they are distributed, collected, washed and stuff. With this data, we do two things. We manage stocks and we make sure that the supply chain runs. And the other thing is we try to make sure that people bring back the containers so they can be washed and used again. But actually, we have two problems with that. So the first one is it's very expensive. Every time we deploy a new restaurant, a new shop, a new retailer, we need to buy the containers. And it's highly expensive, and we make money only by renting the containers per use. Every time the restaurants or the shop use one of our containers, we bill them one usage. So basically, we hold a huge treasury that has to be paid back over time. Second problem is people don't care at all about reuse. People don't care about a change in their containers, even if it's more ecological. Basically, they don't care. They just see, okay, now it's a nice container. So to fight that, we partnered with Perreau. Yanis is there from Perreau, to create a new solution that will tackle both problems, price and interest from people. Basically, what we do is when we deploy a new pool of reusable containers for our clients, we create in this pool NFTs that represent a part of this pool, and we sell the NFTs through Perreau. And with that, people, so actually we pay our treasury for buying the containers, and people in this pool owning the NFTs only earn money when we bill the restaurants and the shops. So basically, people owning the NFTs only earn money when reuse is effective and is used. So for us, the main goal was to not pay for the containers, so it's done, and secondly, to interest people in reuse. And so if people only earn money when reuse is used, it's working, and we have dashboards that help people understand where are the containers, how often they are used, and that's why I'm here.
So, did it work? You did like a first private launch?
Yeah, exactly. So we did a first launch. It was not private actually, so partly private, but not at all. The first launch was mainly to try and understand how we can work together with Perreau and connect basically our ITs. So it worked really well. It was a small launch, but it went really fast in less than a day. And now we think about launching a new campaign by September, October, obviously to finance all the containers we need to finance, because we have a lot to fund.
Frédéric, why do you think tokens, NFTs are really adapted to this kind of use case or for second-hand products?
I think there are two things. The first is because of the nature of the technology, which is open source, which is interoperable. It's easy to imagine systems and to deploy systems in the end of many different users. It can be companies or end users. because you don't have to manage a database, you don't have to build a database, you don't have to create interoperability between different systems, as long as you are using NFTs or tokens. So it is extremely the deployment of platforms, and when it comes to giving an incentive to a client to participate into a circular economy, and essentially, if it's international, and I don't know if you are going this way, but the more you want to create systems and incentive and application that needs to be deployed at a global scale, the more you are facing a lot of regulation and constraints from a technical perspective and from a compliance perspective. And the more you give the opportunity for users to regain control over the data by themselves, instead of having to custody this data, the more you facilitate the deployment of this system, first. Secondly, it's auditability and the ability to get back to the source and to the origin of the information. And of course, from a compliance perspective, it's easier to analyze what's in on-chain rather than to have to keep track of different systems in different countries, in different environments. So for these two reasons, it's very technical and compliance with a compliance angle. I think it's a real disruption in the way you design the architecture of an information system.
Stéphanie, you're nodding.
Yeah. I think it, for instance, well, I put examples. For instance, at Casino, we launched a few months ago now, a game in the metaverse linked to good behaviors and how we could incentivize, give incentive. Yeah, sorry, and excuse me, my English is really bad. How we could give incentives to our clients and customers for good behaviors, but also how we can educate people with, for instance, how you your consumptions of fruits or vegetables must be linked to the seasonality of these fruits and vegetables and so on. And by this game and through both the tokenization and the NFTs we could give to them, but also a gamification of this program, we could both educate people, which I think it's really important in the world of sustainability we try to improve, but also we could effectively make a change in their behaviors. At the end of the game, they had the ability either to receive some parcel with a recipe, with other things linked to our product, or give the same amount of money to an association for the poor people to help them to feed them actually. And I think through these kind of actions, we could both make a difference in the way we educate people to good and sustainable behaviors. We could also encourage a virtual circle, but without NFTs, without this tokenization, without the ability to effectively give it to these people and not the other one, to this behavior and not generally speaking, it makes a difference, because I truly believe that the whole principle of blockchain is based on the personal interest, that it drives the decision making and the behaviors in the community interest in the end. And this is the way the network actually runs. And I think if we use this technology to make not only educational things, but also to make effectively behaviors effectively change, then this is also a way to accelerate change adoption. And I think it's all about change adoption and sustainability, transparency, and so on. We can talk a lot about that, but through different actions that we launched as tests, we learned a lot about the effective rate of change we could observe that we couldn't without blockchain.
You mentioned transparency. That's a Great word. It's an important word in the blockchain space. So how is transparency essential, to accelerate these environmental transitions for you, Benjamin?
Yeah, the main goal for us was not to sell our containers like a crowdfunding platform would do, basically. So if we sold the containers and people were getting money every month on a recurring basis with the same amount every month, it was not really interesting because we needed people to be involved the same way we are in our business. And we are involved the way that we earn money only if reuse is working, basically, and people are using reusable containers and stuff. So that way, transparency is kind of interesting, and actually the kind of financial product we can design with NFTs is really interesting because we can have a direct link between usage of reusable containers and people earning money. And more of that, because we track down every single of our containers, we can really display to people where their containers they partly own are they working? So basically in these restaurants a lot of containers are heading up but are not getting out because people are not asking for reusable containers there. People could, if they live around these restaurants, ask for their friends, their family, their colleagues to go in these restaurants and ask for reusable containers when they take away, for instance, to unlock them and make them go again and again. So that was really interesting, and this is something that is really relevant on blockchain as well, because you have the transparency between the usage and earning money that is basically secured by the blockchain process.
Frédéric, same question about transparency.
So you mentioned one thing, it's having a direct connection with a consumer, which I think is when we say transparency, there are two levels. It can be transparency that you give to someone on the way the system works, but it's also the transparency you have when you have a middleman, like big tech, who is doing his own stuff with data. And for me, transparency is more the way the system works and the ability to be sure that you are relying onto an infrastructure that you understand and that you can audit, more than the transparency you give to the information per se. Today we are living in a digital world made of platforms, and when you have to deal with consumer relation, you have to rely on what already exists, like a Google, a Facebook of the world, and not only as a platform, but also for the advertising purpose. Every single touch point that you need to create go through this platform, which are totally opaque. And for me, transparency is about having the ability to see exactly what those platforms or what the system you use are doing with the information you get into the system. And the real paradigm shift for me is going from a Web 2.0, which is made of opaque platform, to a place where you create the condition to have a direct connection with an end user, and to make sure that when you are using a system, you will not actually give value to the system you are feeding without having any leverage. So for me, this is transparency. It's more from a technical standpoint, the infrastructure that you rely on, which is transparent onto how it works, and avoiding to have what we have today. So and it's for every single platform, and we have one more, which is OpenAI today, which is not open. So when we use OpenAI, actually we feed a beast that in the future will get value out of everything that we request and we put in the platform.
Maybe an example on that is about logistics. At Casino Group, we also own one subsidiary that you may know, which is called Cdiscount. It's a competitor of Amazon in Europe, a major one, actually. And a few years ago, we decided to put NFTs in the blockchain, in the logistic process itself, to track the card box that we deliver to people, the orders. We noticed, as many retailers, that we had a lot of lost orders or damaged orders that needed to be either sent twice, either reimbursed, and that costed a lot to the company, of course, but it's also not really sustainable when you send twice an order. So through this system that we launched with the company called Honest, we could not only track the cardboard itself, but actually the proof of ownership at a very specific moment. The NFT was replacing the order paper that on the logistic chain, people could give to the other one saying, oh yeah, I had 10 card box, and the step after, still we have 10. And people actually could just, put, oh no, I didn't receive 10, I just received 9, and you don't really know where it was damaged, where it was lost. Through the NFT, which is transparent, authentic, that cannot be falsified, then you made sure that the people who received the 10 card box really checks twice that it has 10, they are not damaged. If so, then you know that it's the step just before that was damaged or lost. And through that small modification of our process, we improved a lot, the rates actually. We divided by 2 the numbers of card box that were not effectively sent. We improved also another KPI which was really interesting. On 100 card box that we received back that needed to be reimbursed because of damage or whatever, on 100 of them, we initially had only 30 of them that could be put twice in the system because the 70% others were damaged. With the NFT system, the 70% that were damaged became only 20%. So it shows how, about transparency, you can improve both economically speaking your system and what you were saying, but by doing so you also improve sustainability, because economy and sustainability are not necessarily contradictory and are not necessarily against the NFT economy and so on. And I think this is a good example of showing how we could reconciliate everything on, with the blockchain when it's well used. And I think it's all about usage and the good use of things around the Web3.
And did you do it on your own, or did you work with a startup? Or
we are, yeah, with Honest, the company called Honest invented this system that we use. We're not the only ones, and we put this system only on the more expensive orders for the product that are above, I think it's 300 euros to make it costly efficient.
Okay. Frédéric, when we talked a few days earlier about this panel, you mentioned we have to talk about the European digital product passport, so which is European regulation that will enable more traceability and circularity of certain goods, in luxury goods, electronic items. Can you tell us why you wanted to talk about it, and what's the link with the topic of today?
Yeah, sure. So there is a broad regulation called eco-design, which is in the making at the moment at the European Commission. And inside this, the purpose of this regulation is to build the condition for better sustainable products. So when it comes to emission and consumption of everything, when you have to deal with a large scale, one of the main reasons of having energy consumption and emission is about creating real products that are put in the market and sold to individuals. And the idea behind this eco-design is to say, okay, we need to create a regulation to make sure that the product can last longer, so being repaired, being recycled. And to get to this goal, one missing piece today on every single product, and essentially products which include fabrics or battery, is having some piece of information to understand how to repair and how to recycle. So it's definitely having a set of information around a product and trying to find the right way to put it around the product to make sure that a year, 10 years later, when you will have to deal with a reparation or a recycling of the product, you have all the information that you need to recycle. And this is definitely for fabric, it's a huge problem, because if it's natural fabric or synthetic fabric, the processes to recycle are not the same, but it's extremely hard to sense what it is when you are at a recycling level. Inside this eco-design, you have another regulation in the making called Digital Passport Product Regulation. And what is interesting, and essentially for the technology we are pushing here, is that the European Commission understands that this information cannot be on a tag on a product, because most of the product will not get the opportunity to write a long list of components. So still you have a lot of tag on your stuff now in 10 different languages. It's quite a book attached to a product. But the first thing that people do is they cut it and put it in the trash. So, which means that a few years later, when you want to recycle it, you have no information about the product. So they decided to work on a regulation for a digital one, which is extremely interesting. That doesn't mean that it has to be written in a blockchain, and that doesn't mean that the digital passport has to be an NFT. But what we say at Arianee, and of course we are a little biased, but what we say is an NFT is an interesting piece to be the contacts and the point of contact with the end user, because if the ownership of a product is dematerialized by an NFT, then you can attach a lot of services around this NFT. You can attach regulatory information that the regulator wants you to attach to the product. And this is why I think we have a huge opportunity in the ecosystem. First of all, because it's an opportunity to show that NFTs and blockchain and Web3 in general can really solve real problems at scale. And it goes back to all what I mentioned earlier in terms of velocity to execute and to deploy such a system all around the world, but also to show that because we are using digital technologies, connective technology, virtually we can connect real assets that are not connected by design to the network and create identities for them. So we are, digital passport, I think, is a good word to because we can compare that to our passports. It doesn't mean to have a connection directly physically to the product, but imagine in a few years if every single valuable goods that you have and the ownership of this good is made through an NFT that you host on your phone, and you have access through this NFT to all the services, all the content around the product, including the warranty of the product, including all the information for you to resell the product. Imagine how you facilitate second-hand market, circularity, and compliance for the brands. So this regulation for me is extremely important. It's not ready yet. Normally we should have all the text ready by the end of the year, and then of course that will not happen next year. But it's a long process. But for me, it's an opportunity to demonstrate that those technology can really solve at scale interesting problems first. And for people like me who are definitely convinced for too long now that the internet feeded and relying on Web3 is a better internet, we have the ability also to say, okay, this is where the next billion user is.
Okay, and are your customers already conscious about this new regulation, or maybe the luxury brands in general, or?
So we started with luxury brands because they understand that the quality of the relation, respecting the privacy of the users and the clients is something very important. Plus, The good thing is the luxury brands are mainly in Europe and they are global. So we thought that it was a good go-to-market to start working with brands before going to automotive and appliances and so on and so forth. So today they totally get that this is a question of digital sovereignty for their business. It's a way to be freed from big platforms, to recreate a direct link through the digital passports to their customer. And they understand that this is an infrastructure play. It takes long, so they have to start early, and this is what they are doing now.
Stéphanie, from your part?
Well, we're not luxury brands, but we also launched a few tests with Arianee for our brand called Leader Price, Le Club Leader Price, exactly. And we strongly believe at Casino Group that for all our brands, Monoprix, Franprix, Casino, Cdiscount, a lot of them, it's really important to understand that we are living a huge change in the way we interact with our customers, with our suppliers also, logistics and so on. And we need to be data-centric, customer-centric, and use-centric. And all that revolution that is taking place, it takes long. I agree with you, but still we can have good signs of this change that is in place. Everything could be improved little by little through blockchain and this digital passport for the product, but also a digital identity for the people, for the customers themselves. So we strongly believe at Casino that the wallet is key to for the future with the relationship we have with all that stakeholders, not only the product itself, but also the customers that don't want to share anymore his data without consenting, without maybe incentives. And maybe he wants to share just a part of this data, but not everything. A good example of that is for alcohol, for instance. We sell alcohol and bottles of wines in our shops and also online. The legislation, and it's good, tells you that you need to check first that the client is 18 or above 18 years old. Today, you have different abilities with Web2. Either you just have a declaration and you cannot check. Either you ask for an ID card, and then you have all the data that maybe is not necessary to just check one thing. Through the blockchain, through this digital passport that we can have, you can only have one part of one criteria that you need to check and KYC and so on, but not the whole thing. And I think this example, once again, shows how you can reconciliate sociological trends that are changing now and what we need to have as information, to operate properly, to operate with the product, with the customers, with the suppliers, and so on. So I think the whole idea of digital passport is really key in this new world that we are evoluting in.
You mentioned a lot of examples, and thank you for that. And how do you choose the partners, the startup you're working with? And
I hope we made good choices. We'll see. But different criteria are taken into account. First, we want to have secured system, so secured blockchain. We prefer public blockchain if possible. We also want to have the ability of, this is stupid what I will say, but just understanding what they're saying. I'm not someone who comes from the digital world and so on, and if I cannot understand after a few explanations, something's wrong. So even if I don't understand how even the Web2 works, I understand approximately what it's useful for. after having few meetings with a company, startup or whatever, if I don't understand what they're saying, if I don't understand the purpose, the advantage and so on, I won't go. Another thing which is really important for us is sovereignty. We need to make sure we own the data, we own the system, we're not building something that we don't control anymore. It doesn't mean that we want to centralize everything, because I think blockchain is all about some decentralization, but we need to own the ability to cut something or create something else and not being dependent. I think this is really important, not being too much dependent. And the third criteria would be that we need to be partners. Someone who is not willing to share the value creation that we're making together is not elected to work with us.
Benjamin, the same question, and you chose Arable. Can you tell us why? And did you know about all this, space, blockchain? Do you have like a Web3 background?
Yeah, so yes, I knew about it. I was not the lucky ones mining bitcoins at the first premises of the system and being a billionaire of bitcoins, unfortunately. But I was interested in the technology. I'm an engineer, so everything new is kind of interesting. That's why I try to link basically my company working in impact basically to blockchain, even if it's not that easy to do. And we worked with Arable because their main purpose was to bring blockchain, to bring a blockchain value inside the impact world. So basically they wanted to help impact companies that have nothing to do with blockchain to use this new tool to improve. And actually, it was not forcing blockchain into Pyxo model, right? We really thought about that, and gamification was kind of a key in this decision of using blockchain. Basically, if we can gamify our very boring topic with blockchain, making it fun to look at because you can see all the containers traveling around, because you earn money only when they are used. So basically you have some incentive to look at the solution and to check out what is happening. And because you can have so many business models you can create around that, for instance, with a loyalty program with brands, and we spoke with big product manufacturer, I'm not sure I can name them, but about this solution, and they told us, okay, so you are telling me that tomorrow, if I want to put my products inside reusable containers, I will have these reusable containers financed by my best consumers, so they will pay for me to do this transition. They will earn money every time they are buying our products, and their friends and family are buying our products. So suddenly, reuse is not becoming this boring thing anymore, and it's marketing power. It's something that can be exciting in the world. So that was the same vision that was animating the Arable team, with this focus on impact companies. And so we didn't want to fall down in the blockchain is not really eco-responsive. And I know it's a following question, but so it's not very something ecological and stuff. So we needed to be sure that our partner was really involved in this core value of impacts. And that was the case. They have been working with other companies since, Pyxo actually, and doing this kind of use cases with other impact companies. So we are sure of our choice. So yeah, it was an easy choice because first, there were not that many startups doing what they do. And secondly, the core value of Arable was really focused on impact.
And was the choice of the blockchain important for you at the time?
Yeah, proof of stake, obviously. So it was basically the basis of the choice we had. We asked a lot of our users, actually the users we had at Pyxo, what they thought about this idea we had. Because a lot of them are actually strong ecological persons. They don't know a lot about blockchain, more often, but they know what they hear about in the media, right? And they hear that on their perspective and their media, that it's consuming a lot of energy, and it is actually, proof of work is consuming a lot of energy, so it's not very ecological. And we saw that actually if we wanted this to be a large-scale thing, not focused on Web3 users, we needed first to have this with a Web2 interface. And people didn't need to understand the Web3 protocols and having a wallet and create a wallet and stuff because it was scary for people. So they needed a Web2 interface, and that was in the plans of Irable. And secondly, that we needed proof of stake because we needed to be able to defend ourselves in terms of energy consumption at least. And it was really at the same time that Ethereum 2 went out, so it was a great opportunity to benefit from the Ethereum community and power basically, with proof of stake.
And same question for you, Stéphanie.
Yeah, of course, proof of stake, I think, changed a lot the easiness for us to go to blockchain, because before that it was really difficult to consciously develop it. We also are very careful about. I love what you said, because we did the same. We are very careful about using the blockchain for its right purpose. When we launched our first virtual shop for La Nouvelle Cave, which is another brand that we own, we decided consciously not to do it with the blockchain in the metaverse or whatever, because for that specific purpose, it was completely useless, actually. We could do exactly the same thing with the normal interface with the internet, and that was it. For other stuff at La Nouvelle Cave, the same brand, we put some NFTs to as a proof of property of the bottle, because it was a huge operation with very expensive bottles and Grand Cru of Bordeaux and so on. And we know that these kind of wines are not sold only for consumption, but also to sell it twice and a third time and a fourth time and so on. And each time the bottles travel, actually the quality of the wine reduces. So by selling the NFT itself, not sending immediately the bottle, but saying to our clients, you could ask your bottle with the NFT that we then burn when you want. And you can sell the NFT itself once, twice, 3 times, many times as you want. And we keep the bottle at the chateau, which is well conserved and with good conditions and so on. Not only it is sustainable, actually, because it doesn't travel, but also the quality of your product is better. And by doing so, I think this was the right use of the blockchain. Putting our shop in the metaverse was really useless. So I think it's important also not only to choose the right blockchain, the right partner and so on, it is important, but also to choose the right use. And I'm really an advocate of the right use of the blockchain.
Frédéric, I will not ask you the question. Don't worry.
No, but I will add something.
Yeah.
Energy cost. So the quantity of energy that a system consumes is very related to what you pay. So I don't know any big corporate paying that much in gas fees compared to what they pay for a regular cloud. And at the end of the day, all the market will go for the most efficient solution. To serve as many volume as possible for the best price possible. This is already what is in the making. The infrastructure, of course, are located where the energy is at a lower price. And why is it at a low price? Just because this is energy that people don't want or produce in a very efficient way. But this question for me is not a question anymore. First of all, because there are a ton of layers that you can use. But first of all, what companies have to focus on is not what the press is saying about, because of course there are some layers and some blockchain that really consume a lot, but what they pay. And honestly, I don't know how much you pay.
I agree.
But you pay quite nothing.
It's really negligible.
So it's correlated.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for
My
answering. And thank you, both of you, for sharing all this use cases. That was very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.